In his final hours in office, Joe Biden unleashed some of the most sweeping pardons in U.S. history. Was he protecting innocent people from Trump's wrath, or is he hiding something? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. In his final minutes, literally minutes in office, former U.S. President Joe Biden preemptively pardoned members of his own family for any nonviolent federal crimes that may have been committed over the past decade. Yes, may have been committed. I didn't realize crime operated on the Schrodinger's cat principle. The pardons for the family included his brother Jim and his spouse, his sister Valerie Biden Owens and her spouse, and finally his brother Frank. This is, of course, on top of the blanket pardon he gave to his son Hunter Biden at the end of last year. Again, these pardons were made with less than 20 minutes left in Biden's presidency. This news came only a few hours after Biden pardoned Dr. I am the science Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and January 6th committee members. Wow, he was sure in a forgiving mood. In case you're wondering, Biden claims the pardons have nothing to do with wrongdoing or admission of guilt. It's simply to protect them from unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. Yeah. Could you imagine how terrible it would be if the government went through with unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions? Of course, these pardons may have been a teensy bit lacking in self-awareness, since back in 2020, when Trump was contemplating preemptive pardons, Biden slammed him for it.
President Trump is reportedly considering a wave of preemptive pardons. Does this concern you? All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. You're not going to see in our administration that kind of approach to pardons.
Wow, that really aged like Biden. And it wasn't just Biden. Democrats were also against using preemptive pardons, as long as it was Trump doing it.
The president's reportedly asking his staff whether he can issue preemptive pardons for himself, his family members, Rudy Giuliani. There's a simple answer: no. No, Mr. President, that would be a gross abuse of the presidential pardon authority.
Yeah, that'd be a gross abuse. This is more of a cute abuse, so no need to call HR over it. And oh my, how the liberal mainstream media has changed its tune. These are from 2020.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no.
Where does that come from, that concept that you can just kind of wave your magic pardon wand?
According to the mainstream media, when Trump issued pardons in 2020, he was determined to exploit and abuse every power of the presidency he can on his way out. And he was showing his willingness to use his power aggressively on behalf of loyalists, to override courts, juries, and prosecutors to apply his own standard of justice for his allies. It's all part of Trump's unbroken pattern of disdain for the rule of law. It's good to know when Biden does it, he's forming a protective shield against politically motivated vengeance, and using the shield against revenge from Trump. So when Trump does it, he's a supervillain, and when Biden does it, he's Captain America. Got it. After all, they were both alive during World War II. Biden doing it is extraordinary. Remarkable, even. They describe his pardons like they're blurbs on the back of a novel. The best pardon I've read all year. But that's probably because Biden's pardons are unique. Did you know a pardon from Biden doesn't necessarily constitute an admission of guilt? You learn something new every day. This is despite a 1915 Supreme Court case, Burdick v. United States, which states a pardon carries an imputation of guilt and acceptance of a confession of it. This is also confusing because Biden's Justice Department told January 6th defendants that accepting pardons is a confession of guilt. Now, many would argue that Biden's pardons are just about protecting innocent people from Trump. But according to Politico, that's not quite the full story. See, the Biden family has been at the center of a lot of scrutiny from the Republican-led House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The committee accuses the Biden family and their associates of raking in over $30 million by selling Biden's influence to foreign entities in China, Russia, Ukraine, Romania, and Kazakhstan. Unfortunately, influence isn't the name of Biden's personal cologne line, which is a shame since you would have had a great time sniff testing it. One thing that caught the eye of those at Politico in particular is Jim Biden's business activities. As it turns out, Biden's own Justice Department has been investigating Jim Biden in not one, but 2 federal criminal probes. Both of these investigations are connected to the now bankrupt hospital operator AmeriCorps, which Jim Biden, his wife, and son all worked with. One investigation examined Jim Biden's potential connection to a scheme to defraud Medicare and other government health care programs involving an AmeriCorps hospital. A man who pleaded guilty for his role in that scheme was one of Jim Biden's associates. He said that he misled Justice Department investigators when he was questioned about Jim Biden's contacts with AmeriCorps. The other investigation focused on transactions linked to Jim Biden, specifically his involvement in efforts to secure investments from the Middle East to finance AmeriCorps and other ventures. If this is true, it's amazing he was able to do this right under Biden's nose, because what's under his nose seems to be the only thing Biden pays attention to. Jim Biden's dealings warranted enough of a concern for House Republicans that they had him testify in an impeachment inquiry, and later sent a criminal referral calling for Jim to be prosecuted for making false statements related to that inquiry. Well, if anyone would be an expert on false statements, it's congressmen. Not long after Hunter Biden was pardoned, the House Oversight Committee called on the incoming Attorney General to hold Jim accountable. But it would seem now their plans are thrown off the rails, as in train rails, not the rails Hunter was snorting. Now, just to be super duper clear, Jim Biden hasn't been accused of criminal wrongdoing in those 2 criminal probes. It's also not clear if Joe Biden made the pardons to protect his brother from ordinary inquiries into his business activities. But James has been around some rather shady people, some of whom got imprisoned. He's not necessarily guilty by association, but between that and accepting the pardon, the only way he'd look guiltier is if he pulled an OJ and wrote a book called If I Did It. And given that Joe Biden has pardoned him and other relatives, people are going to be even more sure that they're guilty of doing something wrong. To which I say, hey, those Schrodinger's crimes were only maybe committed. Then there's Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's been criticized for funding virology research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where many suspect COVID came from, and for allegedly hiding information about it, especially in light of disclosed emails from Fauci advisor David Morans. He worked hard to discredit the lab leak theory, and also silenced top scientists who warned against draconian COVID policies that he pushed, the consequences of which we're still just beginning to uncover. What's especially weird about these pardons for Fauci and Biden's family members is that it covers any offense starting from January 1st, 2014 to the date of this pardon. You know, just a decade of coverage. I wish American health insurance had that kind of coverage. So what happened in 2014? Well, in January and February of that year, that was the revolution of dignity in Ukraine that saw the removal of President Viktor Yanukovych and a subsequent invasion by Russia. That was when the Obama administration assigned then Vice President Biden to deal with the country. Now, that might have absolutely no connection to anything, but a lot of the concerns over Biden family corruption is tied to Ukraine. And there were biolabs in Ukraine researching deadly pathogens. Well, those labs were owned, operated, and managed by Ukraine. According to the DoD, the U.S. has invested $200 million in Ukraine since 2005. To support 46 Ukrainian laboratories and their research into disease threats. And the U.S. has such a stellar track record when it comes to funding virus research. But here's the thing. As Eli Lake for the Free Press puts it, preemptive pardons are a terrible idea. This is how republics unravel. When one faction justifies violating the rules in anticipation of the other side doing the same, after a while, all the old rules that preserve stability, the peaceful transfer of power, and the independence of the justice system will be so degraded as to be meaningless. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're the kind of person who likes getting your news independent of corporate agendas and free from online censorship, then join us at americauncovered.tv. There's a lot of great exclusive stuff you can only see on the website, and you'll be supporting our mission of fact-based, nonpartisan news. The link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.